when Reuven, when the Shvatim are being contrite, so ואם ריש הלכי אבל השם אם אנחנו הלכינו אשר אילים לצורך נפשי so בעניין רובין הלא אמרתי עליכם לאמר אל תחתו בילד ולא שמעתם I told you he's a kid you know why are you making such a mess of what he's done he's a kid תחתו בילד that was what Reuven's time to them was okay.
What was the question? I was thinking that because Yosef was a nar, it's telling us. Maybe that helps us understand why you don't see him doing tshuva. Because it's like a baby doing tshuva, you know. He was not a bar Hashem.
He was 17 years old, he was a kid. You know.
When does it become Yosef the Tzaddik?
He was a tzaddik all along, but the fact that he was played baseball while he was a kid doesn't mean that he was involved in different Torah.
I think you said yes,
You have to be a kid also.
What?
That's not what we're office. We still have Reuven and Binyamin, which were part of it. So other people now in the world that will be punished.
So Reuven wasn't part of it.
Right, so I'm saying, are there people that come out of Reuven, we don't know who they are, they're mixed up with the Shvatim, but they're not punished now, basically? They're not punished. Because they were part of the... I mean, so we have the punishment now because of the... the waffles and everything.
Oh.
But the people that are from Reuven and Binyamin, they should be...
Thank you.
Maybe they have some sort of like special protection.
You know, there's again this Reb Shamshon, that's the Polar. I told you that voice yesterday. So he has another. This thing continues. He says, you know, in this week's Sedra, Rashi quotes in the bracha that Yankov gave to Yosef. So he says over here, Vateshev be'eson kashtoi, and his bow settled in strength, and Vayefezu Zrei Yodov, and just a second. Chanamalka. Hello. Dick Tracy, hello. You wanted that my phone is in Innerstand.
You said yes, it was Maxwell Smart with the shoe, but that's not going to go on.
So, literally, the Faizu means to spread out. As the Zraya Yodov is, let's see how he translates this. Thank you.
Try to use the speaker. We have some competition today, so.
Anyway, so here's what Rashi. Rashi quotes a Chazal over here. Vatesa beisan kashtoi al kavishas yitzroi be'eshes hadoinov. This refers to his ability to suppress his yetzer when it came to this to this test with the wife of his master, V'Keirei Keshes, and he calls it a bow al Shem Shazera Yerek Kachetz, because the zera is something that flies like an arrow. Here's the thing. Sheyotza hazera mibein etzbois yodav. That he didn't actually lose zera, but the zera came out of his fingers. So they. That's
Rashi.
That's Rashi. Rashi brings that, and the Sfom say that Yosef was supposed to have 12 tribes, but he lost 10 tribes with this. When he lost these 10 drops out of when he resisted Ishes Fotifar, and that the Asorei Erugim Malchus came as a result of the loss of those 10 drops. So they say that.
That's it also in Rashi?
Huh?
That's also
No, that Rashi doesn't bring that. But that's the Sfar bring that. So, Rabbi Eliezer HaGodol, Rabbi Eliezer HaGodol was and he wasn't from the Surya Asalei Yimachus. He was acquitted. Rabbi Akiva, who was a disciple of Rabbi Eliezer, suffered, was married. Though Rabbi Eliezer doesn't, so he said Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai, who was Rabbi Eliezer's Rebbe, right? They had these five Talmidim. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha and Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Loza ben Arach. Huh? Rabbi Yossi. Anyway, so when he says the milas of his Talmidim and Rabbi Eliezer, he says, Be'er Sid she'enai ma'abid tipa. Because since Reuven wasn't there and Rabbi Eliezer was the Gilgal of Reuven, so his said was that he was not Ma'abed Tipa because Reuven wasn't responsible for his sale into slavery. I mean, it's wild stuff, but it's.
So there was a Habibin that there would be 12 shvatim from Yosef.
From Yosef. The Ramban says that Yosef has the distinction. The Sefer Vayechi ends with Yosef. Sefer Breshis ends with Yosef and begins with Yosef. So he says that Sefer Breshis is the Sefer of the Avos. Sefer Shmais is the Sefer of the Banim. He says Yosef is in this state. He's like the bridge. He has both characteristics of avos and being.
You say that also in the pasuk where it says Eila told us Yaakov Yosef.
Right.
They say the same.
They say that he has this quality of the fact that he was really supposed to also have had somehow 12 shvatim. I don't know how that works.
So according to the idea that it was Yosef's 10 that so the Asara Harugim Malchus was through Yosef. So what about the tikkun for the brothers? What they did? You're saying that was Yosef. So
No, he's saying that they suffered because they were ma'abed one of his tipos. Each one was ma'abed a tipa.
So they're involved.
So I remember, I'm not, again, I don't remember precisely how it was that I framed it, but I remember saying something about this particular Rashi. One of the Psalms says about what happened when Hashem said in response to the Mabul. So he says that I will no longer curse the earth because of man. Because the heart of man is evil, is bad from his youth, from his birth. I will no longer strike all living beings as I did. So one of the Psalm makes a very, very powerful point. He says that is Hashem saying that what he did in destroying the world unjust? In other words, I'm recognizing that the heart of man is compromised, is corrupt from the get-go. So I'm recognizing that's the case. I'm not going to do it anymore. So where does that put God? So he says, I don't remember who said it, but it's a very powerful point. He says that Hashem allowed man to have Bechira. Humankind exercised that Bechira. It was absolute Bechira. They exercised it in the worst possible way. That the judgment against them was just. What Hashem said over here is not that I'm going to look away from. In other words, that they're going to have the same Bechira, and if they were to use their Bechira again in that way, that I won't do it. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, I'm not going to allow them to have that Bechira. That this was, the statement over here was, I will allow man to have Bechira. I'll have humankind to have Bechira, but I will never allow them to reach the point to exercise the Bechira in the same absolute way that I allowed them in the first case. So I won't have to destroy the world. So he wasn't saying that he wasn't reflecting on the fact that his judgment, Hashem's judgment was just. But Bechira is no longer the same. So essentially, the post, as they call it, the post-diluvian Bechira has now been in some way suppressed. It's been modified. We no longer have the same kind of Bechira that we had before the flood. So I wanted to say in a somewhat similar way about that what happened here with what happened with Yosef.
It says Ben Neura, Ram in Neura. So there's a Bechina Laris there, which is where your Bechira is. You're not about the full Baal Bechira yet. You're not accountable.
Not accountable. All right. I mean that's what goes on with where in the Mishpat of Shemayim, you're under 20. You're not fully complicit. You're not fully accountable. Anyways, I wanted to say over here, when Chazal say that Yosef, that 10 drops left his fingers. So I wanted to suggest that when we use the in a certain sense the symbol of our hands is control. That's if we want to use any kind of part of the human anatomy which represents control, it's the hand, because our hands are essentially those are the KSY. Those are the utensils of what we do, what we act with.
Yado el
What?
Yado el
Yono. Oh, there's a ton of stuff like that. So, so when Yosef found himself in this situation, essentially what he had to do was to make some sort of very profound, fundamental decision about his, his, if you will, his sexual energy, that he was going to give up 10 parts of it. Because if he were to allow himself to be fully engaged with his normal energy, it would have been impossible for him to resist it. So this concept of losing 10 drops between his fingers was the fact that Yosef, and it's like the Rabbi Michel took away Bechira, some modified the Bechira of mankind, so that it's not the same. Yosef modified his own sexual energy in such a way that 10 drops left his fingers, which is to say that he...
Meaning the potential of those 10 shvatim
Right.
were lost.
Well, we're lost as a result of the fact that in order for him to be able to resist the power of Eshes Potifar's seduction, that the only way he could do it was to give up. What? You had to give something up. Yeah, right. You have to give up some of that energy.
So how does that connect with the giving up shvatim?
No, so I mean, it's still, nonetheless, I mean, it does mean that had that not happened, that he would have had.
Same with you quote that Gemara often about the Tazal was spelled to take away the Yitzhahara of.
Right. So the Gemara San Heather, they take the Yitzhahara first of all, the Zerah, which they did, and then they did the same thing with the right, the Yitzhah for Arias, and then they went out into the marketplace and there were no eggs. So they had to restore it, but they were able to make it so that the Yitzhar for incest was no longer so powerful.
What's the pasuk of that Rashi?
The Afrizah, it's on Pasuk. It's on Pasuk Chavav, but it's the Pasuk itself is Pasuk Chav Daled, but Rashi doesn't bring it until later on. He doesn't bring it until
The bracha of Yaakov to Yosef?
yeah, bracha to Yaakov.
So you're saying that was a test that he had that he couldn't have any way of passing without losing anything. Is such a thing as that? Meaning Hashem gives us a test that we can't pass?
He shows what to lose. Is it possible that you have to lose something? You have a choice of what. It may not be in front of you, but you have to make a choice. You have to lose something, and you choose what to lose. Is that the free
Yeah,
will?
we like to think that we have, like, there is a way out, right? That there is you can make, the best choice possible. And here we're saying that, he made a better choice, but it still wasn't like he still lost because of it.
It's kind of like Mayim Achronim. It's like you have to give a little bit to the Sidrach.
It's like a bad multiple choice question.
Right.
What's correct? A, B, C, or all of the above?
He couldn't do none of it.
Right.
Kids would say they're not fair. So the kids would say they're not fair. You can have a no-win.
He had another choice we don't know of. Was there another choice for him? Did he have another choice that we don't know of? I think please.
he may have had some choices going into it. You know, sometimes, you know, it's a machlokes in the Gemara between Rabbi Michel about basically Asais Malachta. What was he coming in for? You know, so sometimes people are heroic at the end, but had they been anticipatory in the beginning, they would not have had to been heroic in the first place. I think one of the cardinal principles about Yiddishkeit is thinking ahead, about anticipating. So someone will go to, you know they have, let's say they have a conference, a business conference, so it's going to be over Shabbos. So they try to think about what are the nisyonos going to be ahead of time. The more you're prepared, the less problems you have. So you end up there, and then you find out that there's no way to open and close the doors because it's all done by, you know, by a card, which works on electricity. You know, so if you didn't think about it ahead of time, you have a problem. If you manage to bring along some tape with, you know, them, and there's ways of dealing with things, and that's true about kashrus when you travel. And it's especially true with the kinds of situations in which we interact with the genders. So a therapist with you know, somebody of the opposite gender. So what are the circumstances? Do you make an appointment with someone of the opposite gender when everybody else has left the office and now you have a shallow yichud? I mean, you know, it's all Yiddishkeit is dependent on thinking ahead. What?
It says that Yosef was twirling his, curling
Right, so
his,
you
wasn't
know, it says,
anticipating.
but his peseo bevigdoi, that she grabbed him by his clothes. So they say that it's not so much literal. The question is, what kind of shaykhs does Eshes Sotifer have with Yosef? Yosef is, there's a very beautiful comment about when the Torah describes Rivka for the first time. So it describes her as V'nei Rivka yoytzeis v'anara tevas mara mi'oid. She was very beautiful, besula. She was a virgin, ish le'yida'ah, and she was not carnally known to a man. So the Medrash says, ish le'yida'ah. It's redundant. Besula, ish le'yida'ah. Rashi quotes that. But there's a Medrash that says that nobody even ever solicited her. She was a beautiful young girl. Nobody ever solicited her. They say that there was a rabbi in a community who was a Haredi rabbi, but he would participate with the non-Haredi rabbis who in those days, when this is in Europe, when they had the Neologan, they were the conservative rabbis, and so he would participate with them in their communal gatherings. So when one of the Gdei Atera came to the community, the congregants of this Haredi rabbi complained to the Gadol that they felt that their rabbi was stepping out of line by participating with these conservative and reformed, these heterodox rabbis in there. So this Gadol came to the rabbi and asked him why he was doing that. So he said, what am I supposed to do? He says, they invite me, he said, and I don't want to create, like controversy, so I agree. So this Gadol said to him about Rivka, said, it says over here, Besula Vishlaydo, that nobody even asked her. So he says, the Medrash is trying to tell us that, okay, so you have a woman who's a Besula, but nonetheless, she gives off the kind of vibes where, people might think that she would be interested, so they do solicit her, and then she refuses. But he says, you see that the Mila is that you don't give off those vibes, because they say that Rivka sees the Isla Yadun, nobody even thought of asking her. If they would have thought of asking, it would have been a chesaron. So he said to him, why are they asking you? Why are they inviting you? It's because they sense in you that you have this weakness, so they're inviting you, and you need to have more strength. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to finish up because I don't even remember why I started this. Where were we going with this?
Yosef, Asad Malachta. You came
Oh, right,
in.
right.
Why
So you-
they should put the fire, have a minute to grab him.
Right. So what he's saying with Vigdai is she grabbed him, not so much literally by his clothes, which he probably did, but she grabbed him by, how he presented himself. He allowed himself to be seen in a way which suggested that he was vulnerable. So, and that was the
Is
the
that
plea.
represented by his beged? Or begeda?
Right, all of the above.
Did she not also
Kivana.
have her kivana? I think I read this.
Yeah, it was going the same Shemayim.
It was, right, she wanted to be part of the Shanta. It wasn't just because for sexual desire, she wanted to be part
Right,
of
so
it.
the question is, why is she different than Tamar?
Yeah, Tamar.
Rashi goes on, say in a second. You go ahead.
The end is what makes the difference between Tamar and see.
Right, you see,
She
Tamar
wanted to give up her life.
was willing to surrender her life, not to embarrass, not to humiliate.
Oh,
But she
threw him into the dungeon.
Find Dina and Esav. Dina and Esav, that Dina, they put Esav back to, Yaakov was a bit punished for Dina and Esav. He hit Dina. So
Right.
when do we know, here's a case, Dina should have been hit, and then Yosef and Eshet Potiphar, maybe we've had Shemus Yishmatim, saying maybe that, how do we know?
Well, she was a married woman. And Tamar was not a married woman. The leveret, Yibum, in those days was not exclusive to the brother. It was to a member of the family. So it could have been their brother, and it could have been Yehuda. It was unseemly, but it wasn't. It did still conform to the fact that some member of the family was going to sustain the memory of the deceased.
So she had some halachic basis for this?
Tamar?
She did. According to there was the priority of the brother, but in as much as he was not, that's what he said, Sad Kamimani, I should have given her to, I should have seen that Sheila would have married her.
And of course, interesting, beautiful Rashi, Chulin, Susi of Yisrael. He says the difference between Zaris and Zahir.
He said the difference between
Zaris
Zariz,
and Zahir.
Zahir,
Somebody who's Zahir, somebody who is in a situation, and he figured out a way to deal with it. But the Zaris is somebody who thinks ahead and doesn't get into that situation.
right? Who said that?
Rashi
Where?
and Chulin. in going to Vasa.
Great.
Somebody told me once it's also your Shami. That I don't know. Beautiful Rashi.
Yeah, but that's really the aside of being able to maintain yourself. Don't put yourself in harm's way. Think ahead. Don't put yourself in harm's way. And and the web is one of those problems. A question about how you handle that in an anticipatory way is very important.
The fact that it's called a web should give you an indication of way. They already understood that from the beginning.
So people say to me sometimes, I'm going on an interview and I know that the head of this department is a woman. What do I do if she extends her hand?
Right.
Reb David Cohen, who is one of the major poskim in America, he's a disciple of Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner. He was one of the, and he has a voluminous command of the halakhic literature, and he also has a great memory. So he told me that Rav Hutner paskin for him that if a woman extends her hand and she doesn't know that it's usur, that he should take it and not embarrass the woman. But if it's someone who knows and does it to prove a point that he shouldn't do it, that was his perspective. Chassidim don't have any.
Somebody was an executive director by Rabbi Michel, and he asked him at that time what to do, and he said to shake their hand.
Moshe did? Yeah. Huh?
He told this person, he didn't
Yeah.
make a chiluk between they know, they don't know.
So anyway, so people say, so I say to him, walk in, I tell him, walk in with something, and hold the briefcase in one hand and something in a book in your other hand.
Anyway, the Egris Moshe doesn't sound like that.
No?
It's not national like that, but I know the person personally.
I once came in to visit someone in the hospital, and the family were sitting in the waiting room. And, this elderly man's sister, who was herself an elderly woman, was amongst the people waiting, and I shook the hands of everybody in the room, and I didn't shake her hand. She was a woman who had some kind of a sense of what was going on. So she said to me, "So you're not going to shake my hand? I'm not worthy." So I said to her name was Roz Wax. I said to Roz, I'm really not permitted to shake the hand of an attractive woman. Would you like me to shake your hand? That ended it right there. It was just, it was an inspired moment. So, yeah, go ahead.
So I was thinking, like, the Ramban asked the question, like, well, how come, famous question, why didn't Yosef send a letter home to his father? The answer is he knew he wasn't supposed to. Then there's an idea that Medrash says that brothers made cher, sold him. And Kaviyachol included Yosef in that cher. And Kodesh Baruch Hu. And I came across the Tana video by last expression when it says Yosef threw everybody out when he was about to reveal himself. He did it because he didn't want anyone to know about this cherem that he wasn't allowed to tell his father. And that's the why the Shekhinah left Yaakov, because of this. So it seems to be a little bit of almost a steer. And Yosef was the one who was sold, and the brothers hated him, and however the Torah describes it. And yet there was a cher imposed by the brothers, of which Yosef himself was a part. He wasn't allowed to tell his father. Hashem has many ways to bring Klal Yisrael down to Mitzrayim. So I just want to maybe have some insight into what this means exactly.
Why did it have to take that particular form?
Why did Yaakov have to go through that? I think 22 years, naked and so on, but still, like, and the brothers, how could they see how they sold? It was their choice to sell Yosef this way. And yet Yaakov was supposed to know about it because that's why they imposed the cherem. Something, I don't know, something. Try to get a understanding of what this means.
Good.
How are you Mashata B'Kosh Baruch Hu to the Bezdin?
And when did Yosef come on board with that?
I warned you at the outset that on occasion I was going to give you the boatman's answer. Which was, how the heck do I know? How the heck should I know? But and it's a formidable question. But let me just suggest to you the following. We were some sessions ago. We were talking about the fact that that our world is a vast chessboard, where out of the billions of people, everybody moves a piece in a given moment, and that piece affects the entire grid. The Rabbi Michel has this ultimate goal of chessmate, of evil. And of course, he is the master, chess master, so whenever any one of us makes a move, there is a counter move that the Rabbi Michel makes in the cosmos that maintains this constant direction, this constant progress towards that ultimate goal. So even though in our experience there are things that to us look like the chess master has erred in sacrificing too great of one of his pieces, he's given up the queen, he's given up the castle, he's given up the bishop, but that steady line never errs. It never loses the clarity of its goal. So even though we don't understand what's going on, but it does move towards that ultimate success, and we know that at the end of time, at the end of history, that evil will be checkmated. So, and then the Rabbi Michel will bring all the pieces back on the board. So that's part of our redemptive vision. But what that means is that in our experience, that whether it's personal or whether it's in terms of Klal Yisrael, whether it's personal or it's collective, that that progress necessarily is veiled in secrecy. It's mystery. Because when we do things on a personal level, let's talk about on a personal. When we do things which are not inspired, when we do things which are a violation of Hashem's ratzon, so we change the equation for ourselves, because the Rebbeinu Shalom, just as the Rebbeinu Shalom wants the national redemption, he wants each one of us to be redeemed. I believe, I don't know if it was the Divrei Chaim, or if it was Ramat Oluchina, but one of the great tzaddikim was sitting at a tish with, and he had a row of all, some very substantive people there, Talmidei Chachamim, and Rabbeim, they're all sitting there. And this particular tzaddik said, I really have the power to bring Mashiach right now. But if I did so, there would be many neshamas that would not have completed their tikkun, and they would be left in their state of not being able to realize their personal ultimate goal. So one of the tzaddikim over there, one of the others, said to him, so Rebbe, there's so much pain in the world, and there's so much suffering with Klal Yisrael. In a certain sense, the heck with those, so too bad for those. So the Rebbe said to him, he said, and how do you know you're not one of them? So there, just as there is kind of like a global destiny, there is a personal destiny, and each one of us when we do things, when there are positive things and things that we do that are mistake, it obligates HaKadosh Baruch Hu to make a move that is going to, in some way, offer us some new choices to make in a completely new reality that will give us a way out, give us a way to redeem ourselves. But in as much as we've complicated the picture, that means that redemptive act now is going to come out of a place of darkness that we created. So in a certain sense, what goes on with Yosef and his brothers is really kind of the prototype. It's that's kind of the model out of which all redemption goes. Klal Yisrael is redeemed, but it's redeemed through a process of great people who make great mistakes. The Shvatim they were all giants, and they made a gigantic mistake. And that's characteristic. I mean, that's characteristic of all of us on a personal level. It's characteristic of us sometimes as communities, but and at the times in history. But the fact is, let's again on a personal level. You know, we are people we are individuals who have. Each one of us has a storm going on in us that comes from the time of Adam Elisha. We have the Eitz Hadas inside of us, Tov and Ra, and sometimes we don't think clearly, and sometimes we're weak, and we make mistakes. But when we make a mistake, it introduces a cloud. It introduces darkness. It means that the next time we are going to act, we're going to be acting out of a darker place than we did 5 minutes earlier. And God is part of that darkness. Because in as much as that darkness is now important for us to work through, we've made a mistake, and Hashem is saying, that's okay, you made a mistake. Now I'm going to provide you with a new world in which that darkness is present. But I'm orchestrating that. I'm orchestrating it so that you can redeem yourself. And it's not going to be one molecule greater darkness than you can handle, and not one molecule less. So, in a certain sense, the Rabbi Michel is always in Cherem with us. We don't have the benefit of understanding why we find ourselves in these predicaments and these dilemmas and in situations that seem to us overwhelmingly painful. We don't understand. God's not telling us. And in the years just before the Holocaust, God did not reveal to great tzaddikim what was coming down the pike. He was part of the cherem, but we imposed the cherem, just like the brothers imposed the cherem. We imposed the cherem because when we do something which is unacceptable, so we in a certain sense, we've made God now part of this new equation.
So like Marshall would be like Waze telling you go a certain direction, make a mistake, and it takes you into a different direction, sometimes through Arab villages. Yeah, Marshall.
Is that what we call Hanabi Sayyid?
Right. So that would correspond to the Hanabi.
Rav Hirsch says that had Yosef or someone informed Yaakov what happened, Yaakov wouldn't have lost one son, he would have lost 10.
Right. Had Yaakov learned what had happened.
He would have written them off.
I wouldn't have written him off, but it would have broken his heart, that.
No, I just heard that that's why Yosef went out of his way to not barely see his father the entire time after he came into Mitzrayim, because he still didn't want to get that, he didn't want to outwardly reveal the information and embarrass the brothers, which is mind-boggling. So,
Harugim Malchus, he said, we gotta go up to Shemayim and check it out.
Right.
Is that related to the Shita?
That would make sense. Tell a story about the late 1800s, early 1900s. Then a lot of people emigrated from Europe to come to America. The gold in the Medina, it's like there's gold in the streets. Anyway, so a young man left his family, came to America. His name was Mordechai, and he came to America, and here he became Max. And he made us a fortune and did well. His younger brother came to America, also to escape poverty, and he didn't do well. And he was really hurting, and he came to his brother, Max, for some help, and his brother said, you got to fend for yourself. Their father eventually took ill, and Max and his younger brother, Isaac, got word that the father was end of his life, and they went back to Europe, and the father was responsive to all of the kids, but he wouldn't turn it all to Max. So he's standing there, and he said to him, Tati, I'm Mordechai, I'm your son. So the father finally turned to him and said to him, if Isaac is not your brother, then you're not my son. All right. Let's go.
Rabbi, who's the famous comedian that you always Oscar from the 20s?
What?
The guy who said that I don't want to be part of a club that has me in the
Groucho Marx.
Groucho Marx.
Oh, that's one.